Hey, y'all, buckle up because you're about to enjoy a segment from a Snaps live show, and I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty good time. Enjoy. First round of playoffs in the books, and deeply unexciting games, but I will say this. I am very excited for the four winners, and that the teams that won the game, I thought looked fantastic, won like true national championship caliber teams. Give me your bird's eye views, big takeaways of the weekend as a whole.
I was going to ask you if we wanted to play like a fun exercise, just throwing it on. I know you can completely shove it back in my face here, but if we had a re-rank based on what we saw in the round one, obviously it's hard to do because of the other teams getting buys, but re-rank the college football playoff final 8 teams.
Well,
I would say just my Ohio State, if we didn't want to re-rank it, Ohio State to me is the best team in college football.
Yeah, but you could. But I don't want to play. I don't know if I want to play that game because, well, we could play that game. We could play
Why
that
not?
game. That'll kind of come out. Well, because I think the more interesting take is there's a few conversations going on right now at the other side of this playoff. The first one is like, did the right teams get in? That was an argument that I had conceded, but then the Tennessee-Ohio State game.
Yeah.
And Tennessee was a 10-2 SEC team. Tennessee was the third team in the SEC. Ohio State was the third team in the Big Ten after regular season. But you could say, well, you say, but it's Ohio State. Okay, but they were in the Big Ten. You told me the Big Ten wasn't good. And they went to, so like the point of all this is that Tennessee really deflated, in my opinion, a lot of the 3-loss teams argument. There's a reason why Lane went completely silent on Twitter. If Tennessee had played well that game or dominant or won that game, Lane would be still tweeting.
Oh my God.
At the time of this recording. Instead, I think he comes off looking a bit like a petulant child, as do all the SEC strength of schedule bros. Again, beat Kentucky, beat Oklahoma. You'd be there. We don't have to honor you for underachieving. So one of the conversations the right teams get in. I think they did, but if you disagree, you have an easy argument. Because
I do argue
hypotheticals.
I think the only argument, well, first off, who said Cortland in the chat said it best too. I think that's one of the major takeaways everyone agrees with. Home field advantage is a big deal with great teams, great football teams at home is a massive advantage, whether it's in college football, whether it's in the NFL, it's why you want it. And so that's that. But going back to what you said, I think the real only team that I can sit back and say, should they have been there, should they not have been, is SMU.
Yeah.
Because I'm still with you on the Indiana thing. You're in the Big Ten. You go 11-1 in Big Ten. The scheduling is what the scheduling is. You're not going to keep out an 11-1 football team that is in one of the 2 power conferences. So, I will still remain. Indiana deserved to be in there. They went on the road into Notre Dame and they lost, and they didn't look good in a one-game situation. That sucks, but they deserve to be in there. The SMU thing, while I was very adamant that you should not be penalized for losing your conference championship game while other people get to stay at home. That was my major argument. That is the one that I think if you went back and talked about it, I could be maybe convinced that you lost to Clemson. Clemson was 9-3. Your strength of schedule was shit. You didn't play anyone on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, strength of schedule is something that will absolutely get heavier, weighted heavier in the future. And yes, to your point, likely if this same scenario repeated, it would end up with Alabama being lifted above SMU. But again, we've said from day one that whichever one you choose, I don't really care. So I pretty much think the right people got in.
Yep.
The other conversation that's being had, Aaron, is are there ever going to be 12 good teams in college football? And this is one of the more odd ones to me.
These are good teams. I think there's a difference between good and great, though.
Yeah, that's what people are saying. That's what people are saying, though. The 12 great teams, whatever you want to say it. Are there 12 competitive teams in college football? And there seems to be a lot of people who out of nowhere is like, I hate the playoff. We never should have expanded. I mean, well, okay, guys, it's early. It's a lot of playoff football left to play. Yep. I think you're going to be very happy by the end of this thing. My argument there would be, yes, there are, if the tournament is seeded correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And here we arrive at the bracket's greatest flaw. the seeding. And I know this is something that I kind of hand waved away early on because I thought the teams that would play each other would be closer. And I was wrong with your SMUs and your Indianas and everything else. I thought those would be more competitive matchups, and I was wrong. And so in hand waving away the seeding, I thought, oh, it doesn't matter because you got to beat everybody anyway. But in terms of creating the most exciting matchups and competitive matchups, if you had done it, how they've been ranked by the college football playoff, I mean, two of the teams that you saw dominate this weekend would have had byes.
Yeah.
And would be playing. And Arizona State and Boise State would have. And I think we can all agree that invariably that would have led to better round one matchups. So one of the clearest takeaways in my mind
would it have led to bad second round matchups though?
Well, but now you've created, in theory, double the amount of bad matchups you should have had, because you should have had two of the lower seeded teams knocking each other out, right? And then you maybe get to a bad second matchup. Now you have spread out the lower seeded teams amongst two different rounds, and that leads to more overall, hypothetically, uncompetitive games. Though I hope against hope that Arizona State and them can make it, can play.
You
well.
were hoping that maybe that Tennessee, Ohio State would be competitive, and then Texas, Clemson would be competitive. So you get two competitive games round one, two competitive games in round two. Instead, you got four, and then probably two not as competitive games, most likely. Not saying that like Arizona State and Boise State can't maybe make that interesting, but kind of anticipating both are double-digit dogs heading into the quarterfinal. That everyone's kind of viewing that as if those two teams play to their top potential, they're better rosters. They should dominate. It should look like those round one games. But go to your point, if you get to the 14-team model where only the top two get byes, then it will be correctly seeded going forward, because then it would have been Oregon, Georgia, and then everyone else ranked as they were at the end of the season. It would have been a more entertaining round one.
I mean, look, I think, 14 team, that's for 26. I think if you're talking about things you could fix in 25, if I don't know what the contract looks like.
I don't know if you can. I don't think.
I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. And the ratings weren't great. Not versus what they expected. And anybody who thought they were going to beat the NFL, of course not. That was never in play. Nobody beating the NFL is ever in play. But the ratings were not what they would have hoped for. And this is a money revenue driven sport. And so if you're talking about things that could maybe have them have like an emergency council and try to change it, I would say you change the seeding and you will be completely fine in next year's 12-team playoff. I think the seeding is the root of all evil. And I was wrong in hand waving it away before, and the evidence has proven such.
I will say this. I wish I could find it somehow. Last year's NFL playoff round one was a bloodbath in the wild card. It was on average 17 points margin of victory in the NFL wild card.
Yeah.
This is what it is,
because
you're going to get great teams. You're getting great football teams playing at home. That is, you don't understand how big of an advantage that is. When you're a great football team and you have the home field on your side, you should win.
Yeah,
you should. Win.
I mean, I also
should dominate.
I think college football is going through a weird thing here, and I don't know if it's because it's new or I think maybe it's in part because you had so many jilted lovers this year with the three SEC teams that fell short, but there just felt like so many people waiting in the wings to shit on it all. Yeah. And I said in the run up to the game, I was getting really annoyed with the SEC fan bases just trying to shit on everybody's good time. And then those first three games happened and it empowered them to start victory lapping even harder. And then you have some purists who are like, go back to the BCS, go back to the four teams. What are we talking about here? Are we really complaining about getting more college football? It's going to be better.
That's my biggest thing. I enjoyed the weekend, being able to watch a college football playoff game, in South Bend, at Ohio State, at Texas, at Penn State. That was a treat. Do I wish the games would have been better? Hell yeah, I wish the games would have been better. But as someone who loves college football, to sit back and say this is where we are right now, I enjoyed that part. I thought it was great. I'm not walking away saying this weekend sucked and I hate college football. tear it up, rip it up. We need a new model. I'm like, we got college football playoff games on home campuses.
Also, like you just said, you would bump Ohio State all the way to best in the country after this round.
Yes.
So you can't tell me that we didn't learn a lot of things about very good teams this weekend that have made the next matchups that much more exciting.
Yep.
And then we're going to have more. Like, by the time this thing is done, you're going to have superpowers on superpowers, and whoever emerges, like, think about all the 4 winners. Who emerges out of that crew combined with the 4 teams that got, like, whoever emerged from that group is going to be the most objective national champion that we've maybe like ever had
by far.
And so I remain really positive and really excited about the entire thing. Aaron, I really can't read these comments or anything. People saying anything.
Rots is interesting. I think I'll say Tennessee looked like the worst team and the most overmatched, but everyone talks about Indiana and SMU ignore how trash the Vols are. I skirt the Vol conversation by saying that Ohio State, to me, and I picked Ohio State to win the national championship, is the best team in college football. You saw the best team, in my opinion, the best roster, $20 million roster, extremely motivated after getting embarrassed against Michigan, not going to the Big Ten championship game, playing at their best at home in a night atmosphere. So was Tennessee outmatched? 100%. But Ohio State is going to outmatch everyone going forward as long as they continue to play like that.
I mean,
including
maybe
Oregon.
They didn't outmatch Oregon last time out. Like, I understand where you're coming
from.
But
that was in Eugene.
This
that
also
was
doesn't.
That
yeah,
was
I know,
in
no,
Eugene.
I know.
I go
We'll
back to you. You brought this up the past 2 shows, T. That home field advantage is massive.
In defense, yeah. It was the theme of the playoff coming in, and through round 1, it's the theme of the playoff. No, and I understand what you're saying, but it still doesn't change the fact that's the 3rd place Big Ten team.
I get it.
And a 2-loss Big Ten team.
Yep.
All right. Do
Tennessee played like shit.
Yeah.
They were embarrassed up front. They got absolutely manhandled in the trenches. I did not anticipate that.
No.
Especially not their defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line.
Oh, well, I'd say that was informative and fun. If you agree, please hit the like button, sub, and we'll see you next time for some more snaps.